Hey everybody, insight number 2. I'm going to try and keep this shorter. The first one went way over, but hoping it won't be too long to post on Instagram. Should be right. But it just, so much goodness in there. Okay, so Mark 7:18 to 23. It's also found in Matthew 15:17 to 20, but we're going to read from Mark. This is about having a pure heart. Now, this is covered a little bit in this Come Follow Me week, but I think it's a really important point. I really believe in this. And one of those things of how do you focus more on Christ? You can maintain a pure heart or have that desire to have a pure heart, that is going to help you focus on Him way more easily. So let's have a read of this. So, he is talking to them. So he's already reproved the Pharisees for their false traditions and ceremonies, because they have taken what was the law of Moses and made it into this complex thing that was way overwritten, and just you're never going to live up to all the standards. It's impossible. It's and that's what a lot of people feel about Christianity now, following Christ now. I cannot live up to all those standards. It is impossible. And it's well, you're looking at it from a Pharisaical point of view, where you have to actually meet all of those perfectly, because that's never going to happen. Not even the most righteous of us is ever going to have that happen. He casts the devil out of a woman, of a Greek woman. We're going to cover that in another one. And opens the ears and loosens the tongue of a person with an impediment. Now read through that, because it's actually quite hilarious in the way that it's done. You think, gosh, that would be really weird if it was me. And yet something about it is incredibly beautiful about the healing. And that when Christ heals us, He doesn't always just go healed, There's a lot more to it. He gets very personal about it in the best way for us. So have a read of that too. But in 18 through 23, the disciples were asking Him concerning the parable that He'd given around what He's teaching the Pharisees about all their false traditions and all these things that get them focused on a lot of stuff that actually isn't necessary, and that actually isn't Christ, and it just becomes this overwhelm of stuff to do. And again, while I agree with a post that I liked and shared last week, tick boxes have their purpose, especially if you're running a large organization and you've got to try and get people the best care. That process does work. And sometimes we need to do tick box things to keep us, when we're having really hard days, those are the things that keep us going. So there's nothing essentially evilly wrong about them. However, on the days when we are able to and can, which hopefully for most of us is most of them, we really need to look at it in a higher, holier way. So there's nothing wrong with a tick box if that's what's going to keep you going, but develop that into a higher, holier way. And this is what He's teaching them here. So they don't understand the parable, so they're asking Him, can you explain this a bit, because we don't really get it. We're trying to understand, but we don't. So He talks about what goes into your mouth. What do you eat? You be really careful about that. You don't just pick up stuff that's been right next to animal feces, or you don't usually take food off strangers if you're concerned about their reliability. In our day and age, when we go here, especially here in New Zealand, when you go into a cafe or a restaurant, you look for their food grading. Where's their compliance certificate to say that someone's been around and checked that their kitchen is clean, that the chicken isn't dripping into the veggies, and that kind of thing, and that they don't have a cockroach-ridden kitchen. That's what you'd look for. You'd also think of, if you have an allergy, you're going to read all the ingredients like I do. Every time I buy something, I'm looking through all the ingredients. Is this okay for me to put into my body? And how much of this can I tolerate before it's going to react? So there's a lot of things that we're very careful, usually, children not so much, that's why we've got to watch them, about what we put in our mouths and eat and take in. So He's talking about that because it will purge from our bodies. We'll, go to the toilet and it goes, or we'll vomit it up naturally, because our body will naturally take care of that and protect us. Our hearts, however, are a little harder to cleanse. So that's when He talks about a pure heart. He says in 21, "For from within, out of the heart of men proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, An evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within and defile the man. So he's saying to them, like, be careful what you take in to your heart. Have a pure heart. It mentions the pure heart part in Matthew more specifically, but this is about what you take in to your heart, what you take into your mind, and because those are connected, they work together. So Jesus teaches us to be very careful what we take into our hearts, as it isn't as easily cleansed like what we take into our mouth. That can be easily cleansed. You give it a couple of days after you've had some bad food and you're okay again. You can't do that with what you take into your heart. It seeds in a lot deeper and is not as easily cleansed out. You can't just lie down for 2 days and have a rest and suddenly it's gone. You actually have to actively work to get that out. We know how damaging taking bad food in can be. So how much more damaging to our hearts and our minds and our spirits, essentially, can taking things that grate against that in and taking it in rather than letting it pass through or pass over, but actually holding on to it. It can be very damaging and is the stem of all those things, because they rise out of the frustration of having that impure heart and that troubled spirit, if you will. So from our hearts can proceed much evil, as can much good, right? Yet all these acts, words, and silent expressions come from within a person, not easily cleansed if defiled. It takes a lot of effort, especially if it's been defiled by someone else and you're trying to keep yourself good. And that happens a lot in abusive situations. Even if someone yells at you, like when you're driving and you're doing the best you can at driving and they just don't like the way you're driving for some reason, it can be as simple as that. Those words or that abuse that they shout at you can tear you up for days. You've really got to work hard to just leave that be. It is quite soul destroying. So be wary of what you shout at other people too, what you're trying to push into other people's hearts and minds. We're not perfect at it, but we can be aware of it, you know. So what does it mean to have a pure heart? How can we keep our hearts pure? So having a pure heart is literally, because obviously our literal heart pumps blood around, does that. He's talking about our spiritual heart. What we take in. What are we holding on to? And what can we let go? Is it a place of refuge? Is it a place that, you know, it needs cleaning all the time, just like any building or chapel or temple would. It needs cleaning. But is it a place where we can retreat to and find peace when the world is loud? Can we go to there and can we do this and go, I'm okay. I've got good. I am good. Jesus loves me. It's good. And what you take in with your eyes, what are you watching? All those things. What can you eliminate that you don't need? There's a lot of stuff in there that you could do. But a pure heart is about that intention and that focus on Christ. As I said, if you have that pure heart and that ideal every day of what you put in will help you focus on Christ, that it's going to purify your soul and your heart to be able to do that better. And it's a cyclical thing. The more you do it, the better it's going to be. So that's how we can keep our hearts pure, is some of those suggestions. And if you've got any others that you think of, drop them in the comments. Help people out. People are really struggling with this sort of thing of focusing on Christ. It's not an easy thing for people that aren't used to it. I worked for years to be able to do it, and it's still far from perfect. And there's still things I could eliminate and do things better. Absolutely, 100% I could. And I'm working on it every day to speak kinder, think before I speak, because that's a big one for me. I'll just open my mouth and say stuff. And I do lack those filters as a high-functioning Asperger's person. I do lack those filters. I don't get it sometimes, and I say things that are truth, and people get really offended. And I'm like, why are they offended? It's truth. I don't understand that, but I do know that it does offend people. So I'm trying to temper that. And it's taken a lot of time to do that. So, you know, there's things like that. And let's not go on. But if you've got any other ideas, drop them because we want to hear them. Now, C.S. Lewis, I know it's not a church person so much. He is a great Christian, though, and beautiful soul and great insights. He said, "It is safe to tell the pure in heart that they shall see God, for only the pure in heart want to." And I think that really sums this up really nicely. We're talking about being pure in heart. They will see God because they were the ones who want to. It's the desire and the intention that gives you a pure heart. and the carrying out of that will give you that pure heart. So think about that as you read through this week and how you can do that better. All right, hang around. We're going to stay in Mark and look at how to expect miracles. See you there.